Okay, so I'm going to walk you through this solo. I'm assuming that you've already, been playing and you have a concept of bending and all that. So if I get a little redundant with that, it's for the benefit of people that haven't done a lot of this before. And so I'm going to break these licks down into phrases, and I'll talk about bending, and I'll try to provide some insight as I go along about how to pull this off and pull it together. Now, these licks and these phrases that you learn here are super important because you take them with you in everything else that you do. So studying this solo, like I was saying earlier, is a really great example of how you can do so much without flying all over the neck. He just stays in this scale, that E minor pentatonic scale. Everything is right there. Okay? Again, the root notes are in red. You want to visually key into those. I'm going to talk about a little bit of theory stuff as we're going. If it goes over your head, that's fine. But I do want you to pay attention to what I'm saying and how it ties to the chord. So if all you get from this is notice how Hendrix deals with the underlying chord progression. He's not just flailing around in a pentatonic scale, a pattern, and just blowing through it and hoping it all works out. He's very aware of where he is in the chord progression, and he's responding to the chords. We'll get into that later with the next section with the rhythm stuff. So I'll walk you through this slowly. I wrote this little intro thing on here because you kind of hear it on the recording where he builds into the solo. I wrote that because it gives us an opportunity to talk about a chord shape. If you take your D7 and you move it up, it's an E7. D sharp, E. Now the tricky thing about this D7, there's not a D in here unless you hit the 4th string open. So what you're playing is the 5th, the flatted 7th, and the 3rd. You're playing A, C, F sharp. There's not a D in there. Usually the root is the first thing to go, especially for a guitar player, because a bass player is going to cover it, another guitar player, or the piano player. So you don't have to, don't feel weird about letting the root go. But this was another thing for me that was really confusing is, how do you know that you can do that? I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't understand these shapes. I was like, well, how do you know where this stops? Well, that's an E7 chord. This is a D7, that's an E7. That's a G7. So this is a movable chord. Again, it's like the cage thing, these chords you move around. You just have to know where to take them and how to utilize them. So I wrote this on the diagram just so that you can see, oh, cool, there's this E7 chord right here. Maybe that's just one more thing you take away, because like I said earlier, there's a lot of blues stuff and there's a lot of music that's in the key of E. So you need to know where to find this stuff. And if you look at the chord stuff I wrote out, the diagrams, you have an E major chord right here. E7, E major. Okay, so the solo kicks off with that thing. And you can hear when I play louder, you get more distortion. That's what you hear on the recording. And then he makes his move up to the 12th fret, up to that pentatonic scale. So notice the chord progression goes C, G, D, A, E, and then it sits on the E, right? So C, G, D, A, E, E. Now, when we talked about this pentatonic scale, and I named the notes for you, I said E, G, I'll play it up here. E, G, A, B, D, E, G, A, B, D, E, G. So in a C chord, if you know music theory and you know triads, and if you don't, check out the course I did on music theory because it goes into key signatures, the Nashville number system, triads and finding this stuff across the neck, building chords, major, minor, diminished, augmented chords, all that stuff. So if you know theory, I want you to think about how your theory knowledge is going to apply here. If you don't know theory, that's okay, because I'm going to explain this in a way that you need to consider your playing so that you're not just flailing through a pentatonic scale, which all of us are guilty of. I mean, I did that for years. I just didn't know how to use these scales. So I would just like, oh, well, I'm this key, I can play this pattern. And then you start to hear that things don't always line up with the chord progression. So Hendrix knows this first chord is C. So what he does right here, he bends to an E note. It's the third of the C chord. E, E, D, B. Okay, now here comes the G chord. He bends from A up to B, third of the G chord. Pull off to G, E note, G. So G chord, he ends on a G. Now, I don't think that Hendrix, sat down and mapped out, oh, it's this chord, I'm going to play the root, I'm going to play the fifth. He just had these amazing ears, and he knew where he was in the chord progression. He couldn't tell you necessarily what he was doing, but he could hear it. He could hear the changes, and he could hear the notes inside the chord. So he was targeting the chord progression. So when he does this bend, this is a really common bend in E minor pentatonic. Everybody does that. And everybody does that. And everybody does this. Another Hendrix thing that's very difficult to do, and you might not get it right away. You bend a note, you get to the top, you add vibrato while it's bent. I kind of grip my thumb over the top. I make sure my fingers aren't flat. If you bend flat fingered and then you get up there and try to do vibrato, it's going to be really tough. So I kind of hook my thumb over like this. I'll turn sideways for a minute. And I'm on the tip of my finger. I'm not flat. The pinky is pretty weak. And it's going to have a tendency to want to flatten out. You don't have to be crazy on your tip, but you want to get not like this. You don't have to get like that, but maybe like that. And you want to push, you want to try to stay on that tip of your finger. So when you bend, see how tip of my third finger? And notice I have 3 fingers that I'm using to bend up. So if you don't use your pinky and you bend with your third finger, that's totally cool. Just have the second finger behind it to help push it up. You don't want to just try to bend with one finger. You're not going to get in tune, and you're not going to be able to hold it up there to do the vibrato. So when I bend with my pinky, I have 3 fingers pushing it up. Then I have a lot more control. And when you do your vibrato, you don't have to come down and then start your vibrato. Get to the pitch and start adding your vibrato just by slowly. You don't have to make a big move. And I kind of take my wrist, and I'm kind of raising my wrist and kind of shaking the guitar neck. I'll show you what I mean. I bend up, my thumb's hooked over. See how the neck moves? It's not easy to do, so don't get frustrated with it. Bend up. Make sure you get in tune. If you're bending a full step, you're bending to a note that is 2 frets higher. There's a reason why guitar players typically learn this pattern first, because the bends are just right under your fingers, and they're on the top 3 strings. So you can bend here, and you'll see Hendrix do that in this solo. First string, second string, third string. So find the pitch you're bending to. And know eventually you'll learn muscle memory, just like the athletic thing. And as you go down the neck, you'll have to bend harder because the tension gets greater. But you'll figure all that as you go. So I used to do these exercises where I would play the note I was bending to. And I would just practice bending in tune. Okay, so this lick, we're going to bend up. Whether you can do the vibrato or not, don't worry about it. Try it. And then we come down that scale. Bend the 14. Let it come down, and now you have to pull off. So you only pick it once. And then that vibrato again. So you get... A lot of people will do this. They'll bend, they'll come down, they'll strike that 12, they'll strike the 14. When you articulate too much, it doesn't sound smooth. And Hendrix is really great at getting off of a note and not doing a bunch of articulations. So bend that 14, let it come down. Notice my first finger's not in there. As it's coming down, my first finger's getting in, and I'm pulling off to the first finger. You have to have something to pull off to, or the note will die. A lot of people will they'll get up here and they get focused on that pull off, and they like start pulling off halfway through the bend coming down. Bend up, down, pull off. I'll kind of pull my finger out a lot so you can see. I'm not holding my first finger in there when I bend. I'm not trying to keep it on the string and come down and pull off. I'm just bending with 2 fingers. Come down, put the finger in, and pull off. So remember those exercises we did with the open position scale? You should do those up here too. Double pick. Single pick. The hammer-ons. The pull-offs. Because as you just saw in the solo, you're going to have to utilize that pull-off. And then, remember, you have that pentatonic scale that connects with it. It's the same scale down here, just higher. So that'd be a good exercise to do too, so that you see the stuff up here. All right, so let's just jump back to this lick. Bend. And try to just mimic Hendrix's vibrato. Vibrato is a really big deal, and different players have different vibratos. So some are fast, some are slow, some do kind of this sideways thing. But as you can see, I'm doing this up and down thing. Okay, and remember about playing hard, playing soft. Play hard. Play soft. Combine the two. He does that throughout this solo perfectly. So this next lick, it's really similar. Same bend, same next note, but now he gets a little more bite because he hits 2 notes together. And his guitar tone is pretty clean in the solo. So listen to this beautiful tension. So he hammers those 2 together. He's developing his thematic idea with his solo. Pull off, now pull off, and a half bend. And I bend towards the floor if the next note I'm going to play is this way, because I don't want to bend into the string that I'm about to play. So I bend away from it and then play the 14. So this second measure over the D chord, he does this D note against an E note. He bends. And notice you have a full bend, a quarter, and a half. If you do a quarter bend, it's like if you're doing your minor to major third thing, it's in between the minor third and the major third. So you hear this a lot in blues, and we'll talk about this later. It's pretty common in guitar to just kind of take that third. That's why it's so important, those notes I put in purple, to know where the thirds are. Those are notes that you can kind of, because over an E chord, the third of the E is a G sharp note. In minor pentatonic, you have a G note. So there's a lot of action that happens like this. It's like take that G note against an E chord, a flatted third against a major chord, and just kind of give it some bite, give it some, playing with that tension of the minor to major third. I'm going to play the second one a couple times. Bend, 12, you have to get them both down. And I bar. So. And that's that big slide to nowhere. Let's finish that third measure over the E chord. So you get. Now he slides into the 14, probably from the 12. So you get this. There's that G again. So second lick into that slide stuff. So okay, now let's put those three together. Next one. Okay, next, he does this great bend over the E chord, and the first one is short. He goes, so he bends, gets to the top of the bend, and then he relieves the pressure and probably just mutes. So from the side, it looks like this. I'm not holding that and trying to figure out how to get off of it. I bend to the top of the note, I relieve the pressure as I mute. And the second note, you bend, and you hold up there and put that vibrato on it again. So you get... So we have this so far. Now the next lick, he's really going to get some bite here because he's going to hit two strings at a time. But notice it's right out of that pentatonic scale. So I'm barring for the 12s. And I'm putting my pinky down. If you're a third finger player, that's fine. Do this. I'm going to use my pinky. Now on this 12 and 14 bend, this is another Hendrix specialty. Dissonance. Resolve the dissonance. So I'm hitting both the 12 and the 14. Again, I'm bending with two fingers. The first finger stays put here. I bend up until I get in tune with that first note is a B note. So I'm bending on the third string from an A to a B. So you want that, you hear that beating of the two pitches against each other. You want to hear that. A lot of people just get this, and they just get the one note, and they lose all the effect of that dissonance, and it's a very Hendrix thing to go and get them in tune. So that lick goes. That is such a cool lick. I still love that lick because I would not think to play that. So you have to do this bend with your third finger, and then you have to make this jump. So this lick goes. Again. And then the next lick, I love how he doesn't play right on the downbeat. There's a little bit of a pause. So you hear the D chord, and then he takes off. And so you get, that's that third thing I was talking about. He bends it up, it comes down, and he just pushes it up a little, and then he gets off to the 12. And now this, another cool lick, bend, 15, 12, 15. I've always loved that lick. So you get... Okay, so let's put those two measures together. The lick before it and this one. The slide to nowhere. Okay, now let's start at the top. I'm going to play through this slowly. We're going to piece these licks together. This is a great way to learn. Learn a phrase, just like you're learning how to speak, or you're learning a vocabulary, a language. Learn the first phrase, learn the second phrase, put the two together. So you don't want to just push through the tab, and because then you're just playing numbers, and it doesn't make any sense. You need to think about these phrases as ideas that he's developing. So. Okay, now we're almost at the end of the solo. So let's do all that again. I've got that string in there. Okay, let's talk about that, because people have this problem a lot. When they get to the top of this bend, and especially this lick, because it's tricky to get out of it. I get to the top of the bend, and when I get the pitch, I think about letting my finger roll off the string. And then my thumb, it's right there. So you can just get off the string and move on. Or you can try to mute with your thumb on that string as you... Don't think too much about it. Just don't get up there and get hung up. If you bend and you move on, and you hear that a lot, you have to figure out how to get on the top of your finger. Again, I'm not flat fingered. If you flat finger bend this, you're not going to get out of that. So again, I'm more on my tip. See that? And then I can roll my finger off because I'm not stuck there. So bend. This one's tricky because he goes to that 15, that D note. And then he goes to that 12. But again, look how I roll. I get to the top of the bend, I roll off, and I get the 15. If that string comes through, I mean, you heard me do it a couple times. It's not a big deal. If you listen to these tracks isolated, you're going to hear things like that all the time. That's just the nature of playing guitar and playing solos. You don't want to, you don't want a lot of it because you don't want all these strings ringing through and stuff like that. So you do want to try to control it. But I don't know. I like that when I hear that in recordings. It sounds like someone's just going for it. I'm not encouraging you to do it all the time, but you do want to, try to be able to control and clean it up as you're playing. But this is how I think about it. Bend, get to the top of the bend. I'm trying to roll my finger out so I can get to the next note. See how I roll off? And I do feel, when I do this bend, the next note I play is on the second string. So look right there. Look at my pick. I'm on the second string, but look where my thumb is. I'm lightly touching the third string. So this is one of those things that I developed and didn't realize it. But when I'm teaching students in person, I'm trying to help them with this, that's the best way I know how to explain it, is I get to the top of the bend, I'm getting ready for the next note, and as my pick is finding the B string, I'm just kind of touching the third string with my thumb on this side. But I'm making that move anyway because I'm trying to get to the 12. What a lot of people do is they get up there and they get stuck and they're like, I don't know how to get off this. Think about your right hand. Since I've been talking about rolling off with the left hand, try this. Get up there and think about the next note you have to play. See, I just did it. I'm trying to get my picking hand from the third string to the second. I just muted it. But I wait till I get to the top of the bend. So that lick would be... See how I'm cleaning that up? Okay, now the end of the solo is just going to be this. Well, what do you know? There's that F sharp note again. So it's not in the shapes that we've learned, but remember I told you this C sharp and this F sharp? Right here is F sharp. So he's grabbing it. He's going... Okay, so I'm going to put all that together. I'm going to play it slowly. Then we're going to play it with the backing track. 3, 4... All right, so I'll play a little faster, but not at tempo. Here we go. 3, 4. Okay, now coming out of the solo, he's got that same chord progression, C, G, D, A, and he walks it chromatically. He starts on a C note, C, E, F, F sharp, G over the G chord, and he walks B, C, C sharp, D into the D chord, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. So you get out of the solo. So he knows where he is in that chord progression. He's just like doing this chromatic walk. Now right there, after that little walk up, you get what's the TR, that's called a trill. String players do this, and what you do is you pick the 0, You hammer the 2, you don't pick it again, and you go as fast and as many times as you can for 3 beats. So it's a measured hammer on pull off as fast as you can, and then you got to get out. So you could do it like this for 3 beats. If you can play it faster, or, and that's again, you hear Hendrix do that all the time. So notice that's from a pentatonic note, D to E, which means, hey man, he just gave you some insight. That's a thing, you can do it D to E, D to E, D to E, D to E. This was, and this sounds crazy, but this was a huge thing for me when I realized that I should be moving these licks around, and I should be taking an idea and figuring out how to find it someplace else on the neck. This is a great way to learn the neck. Take a lick, take a short piece of a solo, take an idea, and move it around. So after that walk, he goes, and then just like the intro lick where he did this thing, when he jumped up here, now he's doing hammer-ons, and you could bar with your first finger and slam down the third. Because look what he's doing. If you look at that chord sheet, that's an E chord right there. He knows exactly where he is. He knows how to find these E chords. That's part of his game plan. That's his strategy. He's Hendrix is like an incredibly opportunistic guitar player. He will be playing down here. He's embellishing open position chords. And then you might make a move. You might play a lick up here. Here comes the C chord again. Well, he's probably not going to jump down here. He might go here. G, D, A. This is what we're going to get into in the next part of the course, is how you can move around the neck, weaving in and out of this pentatonic stuff, but know where you are and how to respond with a scale shape, the appropriate shape, or a triad or a chord thing. And I'm bringing that up now because if you look at what he's been doing in the solo, he's been addressing the chords, the harmony, with this pentatonic scale. So he knows where he is. When he does that walk up, he knows where he is. When he does that hammer on pull off thing, he's finding these things. He just knows where they are. He's mapped out, the fretboard. So I'm going to play the whole solo a little bit slower, beginning to end, and then we're going to start doing it with the backing track. Here we go. 3, 4. Now that time I played the solo with more dynamics because I'm trying to get it closer now to the recording. At the bottom of the first page, he really kind of pulls back his playing there. He gets kind of quiet. And then he gets really fiery right here. And then he hammers that. So it's kind of like this ebb and flow that he does with his playing. So I know it's going to look weird to you, and I'll probably regret this later on YouTube or something, but I'm going to be dramatic like that just so that you can see the embodiment of it. I think it helps when you see people responding to stuff physically. That should show up in your playing. So let's do it one more time, because you're just trying to mimic those dynamics. And if you're just kind of holding back, you're just never going to go there. So you have to allow yourself to go there, figure out how to back off, get back into it. Here we go. 3, 4. Hit this. Back off. Go. And he hits these pretty hard. Okay, I think we're ready to start doing it with the backing track. So let's try that next. 2, 3, 4. All right, we'll do another one, and then we'll move on to the recorded tempo backing track. Okay, so now let's try this at record tempo, and I'll bring in more of those dynamics and try to just mimic the recording as I remember it. So, okay, let's go for it. Okay, so as you can see, putting the pieces together, it does feel like the song is at a very slow tempo, but it's not as slow as you think. And there are a lot of intricacies and moving parts going on. So work on it phrase by phrase, do it without the recording, put the pieces together like we talked about, work on this dynamic thing as you get comfortable with having the solo memorized, and then start to, try to bring some of that stuff in with the vibrato. If you can't get the vibrato at the top of the bends, it's a difficult thing to do. Just get to the top, just get the bend in tune, and then move on. You can work on the vibrato stuff later. So work on it in pieces, reference the original recording, and just really spend some time listening to what he's doing, where he builds, where he backs off. You can hear his tone change. And some of these licks are some things that maybe you haven't played before in terms of the combinations. But again, this is a great solo. It's still one of my all-time favorites because it exemplifies so much. You don't have to be flying all over the neck. Everything you need is right in that one place. It's got space. It's got cool phrasing. It's got builds and dynamics, and it just peaks really well. And there's some cool licks in there that I still just find really fun to play. So have fun with it. Don't drive yourself crazy trying to be a perfectionist, because Hendrix, he didn't play things the same way. You should feel good about getting in the ballpark, learning what you can, moving on, and taking this information with you. So next we'll jump into what I think is one of the really cool and interesting parts of Hendrix's playing, which is his rhythm playing. So we'll tear into that next. All right, see you in a second.